I think you all know them. But Ron Lewis, the city's legal attorney, Chief Pena over the fire department, Tandra Emo, who's over the finance department, Will Jones, who's like the deputy chief, Chief Pena's command staff is present as well, along with Jane Cheeks, who's over HR, Human Resource, and Marmalette Hunter, who is the chief of staff. So those are the people who are with me, and certainly want to acknowledge Councilmember Kubosh, who is here as well. Councilmember Kubosh. So Marty, I don't know if you want to
It's very simple. It's myself and Troy Blakeney, our senior legal counsel for the union.
Okay, good. So let me just say, we wanted to take this opportunity to sit down and discuss with you all, Proposition B. That's the reason why we're here. Discuss Proposition B, and now with the passage of Proposition B, how to move forward on Proposition B. Just some brief comments as it currently stands. The cost of Proposition B is right at $100 million plus a year. And with Proposition B, there is no funding source attached to Proposition B, which means that in order to pay for Proposition B, we have to pay for it out of our existing revenue funding sources. Prior to Proposition B, and which I think would be helpful to our conversation here, prior to Proposition B, I want to show you something that Finance presented to the members of City Council back in May of 2018. It's like a 5-year financial plan for the city of Houston, which identifies what our budgetary gap would be over a 5-year period. And what it does is that it reflects the most optimistic projections and pessimistic projections. And if you take a look at it, it's the 5-year gap range. And what it says, for example, for 2019, which is where we are currently in, the budgetary gap is $114 million. For 2020, under the most optimistic projections, the budgetary gap is 92 million. And under the most pessimistic, it's 144 million. That's the budget that we're going to have to approve by the end of June. And then it lays it out over a 5-year period. So you can see from the budget projections, and this was presented by Finance to members of City Council. I want to acknowledge Councilmember Knox, who's also here. It shows you what the gap is to the city, and this is prior to the passage of Proposition B. You have to now overlay Proposition B on top of these projections, which means where in 2020 is showing under the most optimistic point of view a $92 million gap. You have to add right now another $100 million on top of those numbers, and it takes it out over 5 years. And that's what we're having to work with. And the question is, how then do we balance the city's budget when Proposition B comes with added costs and no funding source attached, and we have to balance the budget by the end of June of every year? The last thing that I will show you, and that is on the second page of what we gave to you, Marty and Troy. It indicates that 63% of the city's budget is in personnel, and 75% of that personnel is in classified, police and fire, which means on a normal sequence of events, in order to balance the city's books, when the cost exceeds its revenue, you have to make the reductions. And you can only do that in personnel, and when you do that, that lays off the services. So those are the challenges that we face. I know the public wants us to try to work this issue out. I certainly came with the intent and desire to try to work this out so that we can move forward, but we can minimize the reduction in personnel, minimize the reduction of city services, the impact on Houstonians across the board. But if we move forward as it currently stands, then there's no way you can avoid massive reductions in city services. So, I'm open to any ideas let's say where we are right now, unless there's a plan to spread out Proposition B that the voters approved, spread it out over a number of years. There is no other way to do that without restructuring and significant reductions which will impact every Houstonian. I don't want to do that, and I'm open, and I know city council members don't want to do that, and so I'm open to whatever ideas, suggestions that you all may have, so that we can minimize the impact on this city and minimize the impact on Houston.
Mayor, I'm glad you're the mayor, because you've told us over and over you're a Harvard-trained lawyer and you're bright. And so I'm sure you'll come up with a method to implement what the voters of Houston has passed. Everything you've given me in this sheet, you gave in May of 2018, some 5 months before they voted. So you ran those traps, explained it to the voters, and they supported the firefighters' claim. So the debate is over, the proposition is over, the vote has occurred. So it's an implementation question, and some of it might be difficult. It's not a press thing that you do inside of a voter debate. It could be something you might consider and discuss inside of a collective bargaining concept of how you move forward. You would normally not invite 50 press members to come see what your negotiation might be inside of bargaining, or, as you know, trying to settle a lawsuit inside of mediation. The city and HPOU, who's present today, sued the firefighters, brought a lawsuit against them in district court. So we're currently sitting here today knowing there is a lawsuit pending where the city has sued the firefighters over Prop B. Now, the difficult part might be, how do you implement the pay raise? The simplistic part would be, the city has decided not to pay the firefighters insurance to the union because of some unknown reason. They talk about it being difficult to implement. It really is. It's $48 times 4,000. But for some reason, the members of the fire department whose families are out there and children are out there are not getting their premiums paid to the local that helps pay their bills. So part of it might be difficult for the firefighters. Part of it is the firefighters perceive it to be vindictive, because that's a simple way to look at good faith on the city's part to say, we can pay the insurance premiums. That's not a hard thing to do. So when we look at it, it will require work on both sides. So far, there hadn't been any. It's all been a one-sided event where we're suing each other or we're doing whatever. If the city wants to move forward either through mediation or either through collective bargaining, then I would recommend we do so. We didn't come today to do anything but listen. It is your job as mayor and Chief Pena's job as fire chief to put together a proposal and submit it to us. It's not our job to tell you how to run the city or the fire department. So we're here in 100% good faith, and we would love to work with you and with the city attorney and with the fire chief as we go forward to develop something that might work. But this is the first of what would be a long, difficult process. And I think it's time we start. And so I'm positive that the fact we're having this meeting, I actually regret we didn't have it 60 days ago, but it's a good start, and that's kind of our view. We know it's going to be hard, but we are not here telling the city how to allocate their resources. We see charts. without taking the finance director's deposition for 6 or 8 hours to understand where the money actually sits, we don't have the ability, and probably never would have the ability to understand the city budget. It'd be much more difficult than the union or its lawyers have the capacity to do. But we want to hear your proposals. What is it you guys have come up with in the last 60 days that says this is how you see the options of moving things forward?
Troy, I appreciate the question, but let me just say to you, I'm not talking to you as a lawyer. I'm talking to you as the mayor of the city of Houston and the CEO of the city of Houston. That I have the responsibility of balancing competing interests. And you're right, it is my job to find a path forward. But I thought I heard from Marty and others that the representations that they were making to people in the city of Houston was that they were willing to spread things out over a period of time in order to reduce the impact on the people in the city of Houston. If I misheard, my mistake, okay? The cost of Proposition B, as it currently stands, is over $100 million, which the city does not have. Okay. If you all are not willing to spread things out over an extended period of time, then I have to do what I do on an everyday basis. I know what my revenue is. I know this adds to the cost, and the cost exceeds my revenue. And at the end of June, we have to balance our books. And if the cost exceeds the revenue, I have to make the reductions. It's not complicated, and that's not being vindictive. I cannot pay what I do not have, okay? And this is something that we deal with every single year. Prior to Proposition B, the reason why I handed out the chart, and the council members are here as well, is that every single year, we start the year off with a budgetary deficit. We're short, and it takes all year to try to reduce the cost, to reduce layoffs, and minimize the impact on city services. And the only thing that I'm saying to you today, as I've said to Houstonians, Proposition B adds another $100 million to the city's bottom line, and there is no funding source. So if for example, if you all are saying, if you're saying you don't want to try to work it out where you're spreading things over an extended period of time, then the plan is the plan that I have in operating the city, which means I have to start going through and reducing the cost, and you reduce the cost by reducing personnel. That's the plan, because the books must balance. We don't have an obligation. As mayor, members of city council, let me put it in this way, and I mean it in the most respectful way that I know how. We are not the federal government. We cannot engage in deficit spending, okay? Our books must balance. At the end of the fiscal year, our books must balance. And so if you all are willing to work with me as the mayor of the city of Houston to spread the cost of Proposition B out over an extended period of time, then I am more than willing to sit down and work with you, and we can have some other conversations to try to work out the details, if you're willing to do that. That's the question that I'm posing. Are you willing to spread it out over a period of time so that we don't have to lay off a lot of firefighters and other individuals, and we are being as least disruptive to city services? Because, I've heard people say to me, they voted for quote-unquote parity, but they didn't vote for layoffs. But the costs are the costs. So I'm willing to work with you, and I'm willing to have other conversations, and my whole team is willing to have other conversations with you. I've told them that. But you gotta at least tell me whether or not that you're willing to spread the cost out over an extended period of time. That's what I thought I heard Marty and other people say over and over again.
Okay, let me take a turn.
Okay, sure, sure.
I've also listened to some of the things you say, like you collected another $250 million or something from a pension lawsuit to fill some of your budget gap that came through. And so money comes in sometimes that's unexpected, but I'm not going to go there. I'm just telling you I don't understand all your budget issues. I think what the firefighters are saying is they would like to sit down and have a good conversation. You say extended period of time. Is that 30 days or 3 years? We don't know what extended is. That's what you negotiate. We say, how do you do that? Those are, you say you have your team that's willing to sit down and try to do that. That's great. But those teams need to start having those meetings. And this is the first one. So if that's true, what might come out of this that would be productive is some type of schedule that says we're going to have another meeting within 10 days, and that would be something within your legal department that turns around and says, let's move forward and seeing what the options are. So far, Mayor, you haven't offered anything. Is the firefighters are sitting there from a concept of saying the citizens voted and the law's the law, I brought it, you signed it. Here we are 60 days into it, and you talk about the federal government can do deficit spending and you cannot. But so far, the firefighters are doing everything they can do to work and do what they're required to do. They're just not getting paid pursuant to the law. So if we want to have negotiations, and I am for that, I believe that's the appropriate thing to do. I don't believe it's the appropriate thing to do to say if one side or the other gains some type of political stroke. You are the CEO, that's right, and I am a union lawyer. I am only involved in advocating my client's position. You have a different view. My clients would like an opportunity to have their bargaining group sit down to see if there's possibilities. It doesn't cost much more. There are some things you could do to help. You could start paying the insurance premiums where the firefighters and their families could get that benefit. That's not hard to figure out. There are some things that could be done, but rather than us try to get someone to commit to an unknown concept, it would be no better than me trying to get you to commit. Will you pay 90% in the first year, 95%, 99%, 87%? That's not something these meetings work out. We're willing to commit to work on it, and we're willing to commit to work on it hard.
Let me make sure that I understand what you're saying, because the budget for the city of Houston must be finalized and balanced by the end of June, okay? Okay. And then I got your letter, in which your letter is demanding that the city start paying Proposition B now. Well, those two, what you're saying, are kind of at odds.
But maybe it's the law.
Well, no, hold on now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Come on here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because you can't say you want to negotiate and then throw the law at me. Now, I don't want to be, let's not be the lawyer. Because as my responsibility as mayor, I represent every firefighter, every police officer, every municipal worker, and 2.3 million Houstonians, okay? We have Proposition B that the people did pass. No one's questioning that, okay? And I don't think you're questioning the cost of Proposition B either. You're not questioning that, okay? And I don't think you're questioning the fact that Proposition B doesn't have a funding source. I don't think you're questioning that. And if you're asking me what my plan is, unless, and if you're saying to me that you all will entertain spreading out Proposition B over a number of years, I'm good, and we can stop right now, and we can set up a schedule for some additional meetings. And I'm open to that. But if you're saying to me, Mayor, Proposition B passed, and we want you to start paying now, then that's a different conversation. I mean, it's not a different conversation. you're telling me, no matter how painful it may be to the people in the city and to the voters who voted for B, if you have to lay off people, Mayor, do that. If there have to be a degradation of services, it is what it is. And what I'm saying to you, Troy, and what I'm saying to you, Marty, I don't want to hurt all Houstonians if we can reduce the cost of Proposition B or spread it out over a number of years. And if y'all are willing to do that, I'll meet with you, and my team will meet with you as many times as you would like. And we don't have to do it in front of all these cameras, but at least provide the public and tell me that you're willing to do that, and I'm good.
Okay, let me answer two questions for you. Are you asking, one, are we willing to meet? And two, are you asking us to commit before you tell us what you can do? Because that's what we can't do. If someone says, are you willing to spread something out over time? That means to me that it doesn't start on November the 6th or November the 28th. You and I may have different views about whether when Prop B went in effect and when the money has to be paid. But I think it would be unfortunate if your position is that you're trying to get the union commit today without ever making any proposal that I want you to commit to give up what we perceive to be the law and what we perceive the benefit of the law is, to have an extended time frame without any discussions about it.
Okay.
That's not what I'm willing to do, and I can't do that.
I'm not asking you to give up any legal claim, just like I hope you're not asking me to give up any legal claim that the city may have. I'm not asking you to do that. What I'm asking you all to do is what I thought I was hearing from Marty and others, from the firefighters, was that if the mayor will sit down and talk with us, we are willing to work something out to minimize the impact on the people in the city so that we don't have to lay off a lot of people or hurt Houstonians who voted for Proposition B. And then to the extent we can reach an agreement, if we can reach an agreement on a path forward that's in the best interest of people in the city of Houston and the firefighters, then the lawsuits can go away. I'm fine with that. But you gotta reach, but you have to reach an agreement first. So I'm not asking you to give up any of your legal claims.
Okay. You're not asking me to commit before you make an offer, because that's where you've got to start with. You talk about being the CEO. If you have a problem, there has to be a proposed solution. And that proposed solution could then come to the union, and the union can then take it back to their executive board, who could ultimately have the discussions. And you mentioned correctly that says we can meet many times and try to work it out. And if we come up with a resolution, that's indicative of a process.
Right.
The process is the firefighters are willing to commit to work on the process.
Troy, you and I have known each other for a long time. Take the legal hat off.
Okay, I'll do that, Mayor.
All I'm saying, Troy, this is all I'm saying. This is all I'm saying. If you all are not willing to work it out, if you're not willing to spread the cost out over a number of years, if you're not willing to do that, I don't have but one plan. And that's a plan on every financial matter with the city of Houston. Yes, I will be obligated to move forward, implement Proposition B, and if my costs exceed my revenue, I have to make reductions to balance my books. And people will have to be laid off. That's the plan.
Okay.
Because I don't have any other choice. I don't have any other choice. I'm going to do my best to honor the will of the voters. And again, I keep saying, the city has there are $5 billion that run through the city of Houston, okay? 2.4 billion of it is only available for the general revenue fund. The rest of it is enterprise, airports, public works, 2.4. And of that, over 60% is in personnel. And 75% of that is classified, police and fire. Those are my two major departments. If you all don't work with me to ease the cost, to reduce the cost, or spread the cost out, you're not giving me any choice.
Well, let me be explicitly clear on what
Okay.
I believe the union's willing to do.
Okay?
I believe the union will meet as often as they can, work hard to try to help develop a program that would be fair to the firefighters and do something so that the city could gain some advantage of trying to spread the cost somewhere. What that is, we have not talked about it. We don't know. We have no opportunity today to give it. But it seems to be, to me, that you're saying, absent some type of commitment today, then there's nothing to talk about. That might be true, but that means it's all or nothing. And you and I know, we can forget lawyering. We've been around a long time. You're right, we have known each other a long time. And if we turn around and say, what's the negative aspect of trying to work through to see if there's some opportunity, and still trying to say, I'm going to get you to commit today that you will implement it within the next 30 days if it's the law. Are you willing to commit? I'm not asking you to answer, but I didn't come today to get a commitment from you. I come to see if there was opportunity to move forward. If you have a different goal, then I don't know how we get there, because Marty and I didn't bring a bullet that says we can solve the problems as it relates to firefighting or the cost. We came with a commitment that if you wish to have your team move forward and meet with us on a basis to work to see if there's some common ground, we're in.
Well, I'm not drawing any lines in the sand, Troy, because that's not in the best interest of anybody. It's not in the best interest of the city of Houston. But what I will say to you, and I don't have any problems with meeting as many times as we want, okay? But there has to be a willingness to spread the cost over several years or reduce the cost. Otherwise, to balance the books is going to create adverse effects on the people in the city of Houston, as well as on firefighters. Okay? I don't want to have to this is my goal. This is my goal. As the CEO of the city of Houston, I want to honor Proposition B. I want to minimize layoffs. I don't want to have to lay off firefighters or police officers or minimize the number or municipal work, anybody else. I don't want to have a degradation of city services, okay? I don't want to do that. And in order for me to achieve that objective, you all have to be willing to spread the cost out of several years or reduce the cost. If there are other meetings that you would like to have to do that, fine. But you can't send me letters saying, start paying us now.
Let me ask you
And then
one. Let's stop right there.
Okay.
If it's the law, if Prop B was passed and is valid, why aren't the firefighters entitled to the money?
Well, Prop B passed, okay? I'm moving forward to honor Prop B. But if you're telling me that you're not willing to work it out, we're moving forward to implement Prop B. Okay? But it's going to entail painful cuts and a lot of them. So and what I was hearing, Troy, several times from you, from Marty and others, is that y'all wanted to sit down and spread things out to minimize those reductions. And I'm here to work with you. But
I'm going to take a quick shot, and then I'll pitch it back to Troy. Mayor, Troy and I talk, and it's he says, there's legal and then there's political. So I'll speak on behalf of the members that I represent and the things that I have said on record for the past year and a half in the position of the firefighters. It has not changed. It has been the same. Where we sit here today is the same thing we sat a year ago when we tried to work this out. The city, in our opinion, has two options. Follow the law, that is Proposition B, or option B, follow the law by amending the law through a lawful collective bargaining contract. which is the same thing that we have said over and over and over and over and over and over again. But when the members at the station, when their families continue to see lawsuits from the city to not acknowledge what the will of the voters is, and be willing to actually have substantive discussions, the members continue to hurt. And when it relates to the insurance and the medical trust fund, that is something that I don't believe the city has an excuse for as to why they have not started paying. That is something that is an easy thing in which to move forward with. But if the city would like to drop its lawsuit, is the city willing to drop its lawsuit?
We are prepared to drop our lawsuit, as I hope you will be prepared to drop yours, Marty, if we will work forward, can reach an agreement and resolve this issue on Proposition B. There will be no need for any lawsuits. So yes, if we reach a resolution, the city will immediately drop its lawsuit, as I hope the Firefighters Union will drop its demand for asking the city to pay now.
Well, I think what the firefighters' demand is to implement the law.
Because you asked me now. My answer to you is yes. And I hope the union is prepared to drop its lawsuit and its demand that the city start paying now as we continue to try to have these discussions.
I'm not a lawyer. I wasn't given that gift. So what it sounded like in the answer, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the very thing, the opposite of what you have asked our attorney to do. But you said if there's an agreement, you're going to drop a lawsuit. But what you've asked for our attorney and us to do is agree to something before you're going to do something, which is the opposite of what you have just said when it comes to dropping your lawsuit. Again, all of the things that are going on, the men and women in the field, the men and women that are going to work every day putting their lives on the line, they don't understand why it is, singular question, why isn't the city following what is now currently the law? And all we're looking for is what Troy said, is to have a discussion and a dialogue, the same thing that we have continued to say for a year and a half. It hasn't changed. You know our position. So I'll pitch it back over to Troy because he says it a lot more eloquently than I do, but I try to advocate for the men and women.
Well, I'm not going to beat this. I'm not going to go over and over. We'll sit down and continue to discuss, meet with you at any point in time. If you so desire to work things out, we certainly would love to do that. But let me be very, very clear, because I don't want anyone to misunderstand. Proposition B costs over $100 million a year. The city does not have $100 million a year. There was no funding source in Proposition B, okay?
We've heard you say that three times.
But apparently, because there is no $100 million sitting in a bank account undedicated where a check can be written. Okay. But this team, prepared to sit with you many times as we move forward to implement Proposition B. My hope is that y'all will come to the table and will be willing to spread the cost or reduce the cost. That's the hope.
Okay. Here, I only have one comment, and then I think we probably kick the can as long as we can.
I think we have.
Okay. We have a little different method of doing business than you do. We don't have a CEO. We don't have a 250-man legal department. We got a union president. We got a board. And then we have to take it back. So when you talk about bringing something over, collective bargaining always works the best when there are presentation and offers by the city that can go back to the board and be discussed in detail and meet with committees and then come back with proposals. So with your team, I would look forward to talking about that. But it functions better if the city has some type of option that they bring forward that is finite and exact, so that the members can then be polled to see what their pulse is. With that, I will,
Thanks,
I
Troy.
agree with you.
It always works best when all parties bring options. The options that I propose is that you spread it out over a period of years or reduce your costs. And regardless of what you call it, these are discussions, negotiations, you know, that's what we're having. I'm prepared, my team is prepared to sit down with you in any time. I called this meeting, you can certainly call the next one.
Hey, good point. Who do we communicate with?
You can communicate with Chief Pena or Ron Lewis, city attorney.
Lead it.
But I will say to you, in the meantime, we will continue to move forward, putting forth a plan to implement Proposition B. We will continue to do that, and we will continue to do what we have to do to balance the city's books by the end of this fiscal year. I don't want to have to lay off a lot of people. I don't want to hurt the people who voted for your proposition. But what I will say to you, if you don't help me, the chips must fall where they may. But we will move forward to implement Proposition B as quickly and expeditiously as we can. Okay, thank you. Good to see you.
Oh.
You want the first meeting to be coordinated, Mr. Marty and I, or, hey, how are you?
Give us a little bit, and I'll have Marty, and I'll talk to Ron.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
It is. And so I just think we need to get this started. We'll be in touch. I've already been in touch with the project. I'll be able to do it. Okay, thanks.
Good to see you together. Next up is, Ron to see.
Real quick.
I did too. You ready to get I got it. Thank you. I'm going upstairs to try to turn this around as quick as possible. Now I don't maybe just say I'm new.
Sí, ya iba de salida.
Hey, Chief.
Hey! How are you, Councilman? Good to see you, man. You doing okay?
Okay, thank you.